Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the all-new 2023 Chevy Colorado. We finally have the official specs on the truck. Before we get into the video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's dive right into it. So let's start off by going over the official specs, and then we will dive into my opinions on this truck and whether or not you should go and order one. So first off, this will be a 2023 model year truck, and Chevy's basically stated that they will start producing this truck at the beginning of next year. And so don't expect to be able to get your hands on one of these at the end of the year. A lot of manufacturers will release their 2023 model years early, right? You guys have seen me review a lot of 2023s already, but not the case with the Colorado. Now, the big news with the new Colorado is the fact that they are only offering this in the crew cab short bed configuration. You can't get a long bed anymore, and you can't get a smaller cab anymore, even for the work truck package. And so I'm sure a lot of you are going to be disappointed with that news that, use this as a work truck with the longer bed. So basically you have a 5'2" bed. And again, the crew cab, that is the only configuration with the new Colorado. Now, the next thing is in terms of like the overall size difference with this new Colorado, it's 2.3 inches wider compared to the previous generation, and it is 3.1 inches longer with the wheelbase. And so what this means is, well, it's going to look cooler because it's wider, but more importantly, with that increased wheelbase, it should feel a little bit more stable and a little bit more comfortable and compliant from a ride quality perspective. Now, the next bit of big news is wheels. The new Colorado is going to use the exact same wheels as the Chevy Silverado. The bolt pattern is completely identical, so you can technically take old Silverado wheels and throw them on your new Colorado if your heart so desires. But the bigger thing with this is now the Colorado has bigger rotors. So they're about 1 inch bigger on the front and a little bit under an inch bigger in the rear. And the reason why this has bigger rotors is it needs the extra stopping power because the Colorado now weighs 200 to 300 pounds more compared to the previous generation. And you guys will understand that in a little bit. We already talked about the fact that this is just a bigger vehicle, right? It's a little bit wider, it's a little bit longer with the wheelbase, but there's some other things that will make it heavier. But yeah, that's the next little bit is we have bigger brakes, Silverado wheels, and a heavier truck overall. The most interesting part about the new Colorado is the fact that it only has one available powertrain technically, but also not technically at the same time because it has different tunes. Chevy is taking some advice from German automakers and basically just retooling the same exact powertrain with different tunes throughout their lineup, which obviously it's a way to save money. So the base powertrain is a turbocharged 2.7 liter four-cylinder, goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's good for 237 horsepower and 259 pound-feet of torque. Can tow 3,500 pounds. And then you can upgrade that powertrain to the next powertrain, which is the same exact 2.7 liter four-cylinder, goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's good for 310 horsepower and then 390 pound-feet of torque. And then they have a high-output version that has the same amount of horsepower, 310 horsepower, but then 430 pound-feet of torque, just like the new Silverado. So you basically have the Silverado's 2.7 liter four-cylinder detuned to work for lower down packages on the Colorado, and then you have it tuned up to the normal Silverado mount for the high-end packages on the Colorado. And if you guys are wondering how this works, on the WT and LT trims, that comes standard with the lowest output that I talked about, the 237 horsepower, and then the Z71 and Trail Boss are going to have the middle of the line tuned 310 horsepower, right? Well, 390 pound-feet of torque. It's better to talk about the torque with that segment. And then the ZR2 is going to come with the high output version. But what Chevy has also said is that you can get the high output version on the other packages as part of their pre-order thing with this truck. So you basically have to jump in and order right away as soon as the truck is available to be ordered if you want to basically get like a work truck with the high output version of the powertrain. Now, in terms of fuel economy, they're saying that they are trying to get around the high teens for around town. And then for highway, they're trying to get mid-20s. So we'll see what it ends up being in terms of the EPA rating. But this still has all the same technology as the Silverado. So you still have the cylinder deactivation in a four-cylinder turbocharged engine. And you still have all the other things that are associated with that engine. And well, I've made videos on the main channel talking about that, so I'm not going to talk about that in this video, but just go research it. It's a very interesting powertrain to say the least. Now, the next thing is the interior. So they are fully updating the interior for the 2023 Colorado. It looks a whole lot nicer compared to the previous generation. 11.3-inch infotainment system, which I think looks nice. Basically, they've taken the interior from the Silverado and shrunk it down and thrown it into the Colorado, just like I guessed they would do. So if you're familiar with basically the new Silverado interior, again, kind of shrink that down. Also take some, it looks like, and you guys can see the picture here in the video, it looks like they've also kind of taken some elements from some of the SUVs, like the shifter and everything, and kind of also thrown that into this new Colorado. So it's kind of like a parts bucket in a sense. But the biggest thing you need to know is you've got a new infotainment system. You also have a new gauge cluster as well that looks quite a bit more modern compared to the previous version, and overall just big improvements from an interior perspective with the truck. Now let's dive into the stuff that I care about, and that is the off-road packages for the new Colorado. And frankly, these are the packages that seem to be getting the most changes, because packages like the WT and the Z71 are pretty much just being carried over. Obviously they have the new body style and the new interior, but they aren't getting as overhauled as the off-road packages. So first off, well, the true off-road packages, aka the Trail Boss and the ZR2. So with the Trail Boss package, and I've actually never reviewed a Trail Boss because dealers don't seem to order them, sadly, because you can get it in the current generation Colorado. It has a 2-inch suspension lift, which is really cool. 9.4 inches of ground clearance total, 32-inch tall tires wrapped around 18-inch wheels, because again, it has these Silverado wheels. And I mean, overall, really exciting stuff. So it's going to be a serious off-roader. But the cool thing is the new ZR2. So 10.7 inches of ground clearance, 33-inch tall tires, 17-inch wheels. That means that with the ZR2, it's going to have quite a bit of sidewall with the tires. 3.42 axle ratio, so it doesn't have the most aggressive axle ratio, but then that means it's going to get slightly better fuel economy. And apparently they are doing the flow tie with the ZR2 just like with the Silverado, that's completely just for looks. Still uses the DSSV shocks from Multimatic, just like the previous generation Colorado ZR2 and the new Silverado ZR2. Still utilizes leaf springs in the rear, so that's not changing whatsoever. But the coolest thing is there's going to be an upgrade available on the ZR2 called the Desert Boss, which is supposed to be for like high-speed desert runs. And what this package adds is 17-inch beadlock capable wheels. You also get like a special kind of like bar on the bumper to make it look a little bit more aggressive, I suppose. And then it also has a light bar mounted on like a rack in the back. And so it's like perfectly set up from the factory to do, you know, off-roading, whether it's, you know, during the day or at night in the middle of the desert, which is just, I don't know, really cool overall. Now, on top of that, they're also releasing a new tailgate storage system that apparently has lockable space that's 45 inches wide, 4 inches deep, and so it's just going to add some practicality for storage within the bed. So, yeah, pretty cool changes there as well. Now, with all this taken into account, let's get into what I think about this new Chevy Colorado. So first off, I think that Chevy did a really good job with the exterior styling. It still has the Colorado's cool kind of like mid-size truck wide body appearance, especially with the ZR2. It has this really cool aggressive appearance. I'm glad that Chevy didn't do the stupid split like headlight design where they have like a daytime running light split from the headlight, because I was a little bit worried, judging by the spy shots that I saw that they might do that, but they didn't end up doing that, which was really, really good. And so yeah, props to Chevy with the design on the outside. And then updating the interior, obviously that's another big plus, because the Colorado, just like other mid-sized trucks, frankly, was in desperate need of an interior update overall. And frankly, I don't have a lot of bad things to say. I think they did a really good job with the lineup. Now, I know a lot of people will be upset by the fact that you can't get a long bed Colorado anymore. I do think that's a slight misstep, but at the same time, manufacturing right now is really difficult, and so this will streamline manufacturing because Chevy's building just one cabin bed configuration for the Colorado, and so they don't have to worry about doing different configurations at the factory. So again, it'll streamline things. And on top of that, right, there's just not enough vehicles out there, and so like this will just make it so they can pump out the most amount possible, and they still probably won't be able to fully meet demand anyways, right? And so again, it just makes logical sense in the short term. In the long term, they'll probably add like a long bed version to make themselves stay competitive with the other mid-size trucks in the market. Aside from that, the only thing that I think that Chevy should have done with the Colorado that, you know, they also should do with the Silverado, right, is they need to ditch leaf springs, because coil spring technology, multi-link suspension technology is advanced enough to be able to have solid payload capacity, right? It's not as good as leaf springs, but it's pretty dang close. And especially since the Colorado seems to be fully oriented towards off-roading at this point, it doesn't make sense for it to have leaf springs. And again, the reason why I'm saying that is you have a Z71 package, you have a Trail Boss package, you have a ZR2, and then you have a Desert Boss package. 4 trim packages on the new Colorado are dedicated towards off-roading. And so a multi-link setup in the rear end would have just made so much more sense compared to leaf springs, right? It would have helped keep it nice and planted. And again, the technology is there to make it so that you can still have a solid payload capacity. Now, something that Chevy didn't announce with this new Colorado is pricing, but I'm going to give you guys my estimate in terms of pricing based on, well, the crazy inflation we've had and judging by the prices on other mid-size trucks. So I'm guessing that with the WT package, it's going to probably start somewhere in like the $30,000 range, maybe under $30,000 for like a base model 2-wheel drive. But again, this can't be had with the smaller cab and long bed anymore. So judging by the fact that it's only going to be a crew cab with a shorter bed, I'm thinking it's going to be somewhere in the $30,000 range with the starting price. And it's going to go up from there. 4-wheel drive obviously will add a pretty big price premium. Now, in terms of the higher end packages, like the ZR2 and like the Desert Boss, for example, judging by how much the ZR2 costs now, which is almost $50,000, I would not be shocked if the new ZR2 is in the $55,000 price range and that the Desert Boss is in the $60,000 price range for a mid-size truck. So again, don't be shocked if that's the price that you see. Now, other than that, that is pretty much going to sum things up for a video on the new Colorado. Let me know what you guys think about the new Colorado, if you think you're going to get it. And I guess I should finish off by saying if you guys should go for it or not. I think if you currently own a Colorado, especially if it's a crew cab short bed, this is obviously going to be a big upgrade, especially if you own either a Trail Boss or a ZR2 and you want to upgrade to, again, either the new Trail Boss, the ZR2, or the Desert Boss. I definitely think it'll be worth the upgrades, right? With the fact that the truck's going to be slightly wider, that's going to be better with stability. It just looks better, nicer interior, all that kind of stuff. I think that that group of people, it's definitely going to be worth upgrading to. But on the lower end side of things, it might not necessarily make sense because of the cost increase and also the fact that you can't get the longer bed. So it just will really depend on which group you're in. And yeah, that'll sum things up. See you guys.